2024's F1 season has ignited over recent races with the ascension of McLaren and Mercedes. Both teams now look capable of battling Max Verstappen for race wins on raw pace. The summer break couldn't be coming at a worse time, with fans desperate to see more on-track action now 3 teams are in contention for race wins. People are asking how the sport got to this point though. Where did Red Bull go wrong? And how did McLaren and Mercedes manage to out-upgrade them? Inside information from Red Bull and accusations from Adrian Newey has revealed where they might have gone wrong with the RB20. Today, I'll check out what's gone wrong for the reigning world champions, what's gone right for their rivals, and why Red Bull are running to the FIA for help. So, don't go anywhere. This season has exploded into life since Lando Norris's win in Miami during the 6th round of the season. The opening 5 races instilled fear into the hearts of all F1 fans. Red Bull looks set to dominate yet again, with Max Verstappen winning 4 of the opening 5 rounds with an average gap of 19.53 seconds to the next closest non-Red Bull car. After the reigning world champions won all but 2 races in 2023, many predicted a repeat this year. However, that Miami win for Lando Norris signaled the end for Red Bull's dominance, though we didn't know it at the time. Since Miami, Perez has found himself completely outclassed by the Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren drivers, while Max has been beaten 3 times in 6 races, the first time that has happened since the final 6 races of 2021. The balance of power has completely shifted over the last 6 races, and the reasons for that are complex. Let's start with how Red Bull's rivals have improved their performance over the past 6 rounds. For the opening 4 rounds of the season, Ferrari looked to be the best of the also rounds behind Red Bull. They took 5 podium places during that time, with McLaren being the only other team able to get a podium finish, which came in Australia, where Red Bull had some serious issues that held them back. In May, that all changed though. In the 8 races since the opening 4, Ferrari have only managed 5 more podium finishes, halving the rate they'd been accumulating them at. That is in large part due to the work done by Mercedes and McLaren. Those 2 teams brought some major upgrades that completely changed the outlook for the season. The McLaren upgrade introduced in Miami and that of Mercedes spread over the Monaco and Canada weekends have brought them within striking range of the Red Bull, with both cars recording pole positions and victories. McLaren's upgrade essentially added more downforce to an already well-balanced car. By contrast, Mercedes was correcting a basic aerodynamic flaw in its car with its 2-part upgrade, one which has worked very well. In the 6 qualifying events prior to Miami, McLaren averaged around 0.5 seconds off Red Bull, with Mercedes around 0.7 seconds adrift. The McLaren's deficit was fairly consistent from track to track, showing that the car was well balanced but lacking raw performance, whereas that of the Mercedes varied wildly according to the track layout, highlighting how unbalanced their car was, meaning it worked far better at some tracks than others. McLaren had already planned the Miami upgrade before the season had even started, but it was a major re-engineering job requiring the resitting of the radiators and other cooling apparatus, so it took some time to develop and manufacture. A new floor led to a new design of side pod, both of which were improved by a new front wing. The combination of the increased airflow energy through the underfloor and over the top did an excellent job in improving McLaren's downforce. While McLaren had planned for this boost in performance, Mercedes found theirs in a very different manner. Initially, the W15 did not react well to circuits with a big spread of corner speeds because of its combination of low-speed understeer and high-speed oversteer. A breakthrough was made when it was realized that a key part of the problem was the original front wing. The one with the rod-like upper flap was working badly at low speed and then too well at high speed. It didn't produce enough downforce in low-speed corners, but produced too much at high speed. A more conventional front wing was introduced at Monaco, and 1 race later in Montreal, George Russell set pole position and led for much of the race's distance. Since then, both Russell and Hamilton have taken victories. However, it hasn't just been the 2 teams' upgrade successes which have overturned the deficit. If Red Bull had been able to match the development rate of the 2 teams, Max would still be winning every race by roughly 20 seconds. That hasn't happened though, and a combination of interviews and insider information from Red Bull have revealed where it has gone wrong for them. Red Bull's technical director Pierre Wash recently suggested that his team has lost its sizable competitive advantage because rival teams had more room for improvement. That is something that naturally happens in Formula 1 as the life cycle of a set of technical regulations extends. While Red Bull has come up with a new concept for its RB20 for this year, rival teams seem to have had bigger scope for improvement. Wash insists that stable regulations have led to a convergence between the teams. The regulations have been the same for a few years now, and there are many restrictions, so we're doing a lot of work for only small margins. But I do think we can continue to develop this car, and that we can still find a lot of performance in the coming period, concluded the Frenchman. There is a theoretical fastest possible car within each set of technical regulations, and the longer the teams have to work toward that, the less performance there is to find. However, Red Bull's difficulties with finding more performance this season may be due to mistakes made very early on in the RB20's design process, not just due to that natural convergence. The RB20 is a big change from previous seasons, with its new cooling inlets above the halo and the side pods changing from an underbite to an overbite. Helmut Marko called it a little revolution at the beginning of the year. The aim of the revolution was to gain performance at low and medium speeds without compromising the car at high speeds. To do this, Red Bull came up with the cooling solution seen on the RB20 at the moment, which freed up space towards the bottom of the car's internal layout to increase the side pod undercut and change the underfloor shape. With Red Bull now struggling to find more performance, it's safe to assume that this decision, while potentially a good one at the time, has limited the RB20's development potential. After resigning from Red Bull last May, Adrian Newey told Sky Sports UK that the RB20 did not fully convince him, especially the cooling solution that he was not at all satisfied with, and that it is something that will change later in the course of the season or more likely next year. Newey did not agree with the extreme cooling solution to the point that, according to a source very close to the English engineer, he even hates those entrances placed on the side of the halo introduced in Japan, just as he did not believe that the overbite side pod inlets were a good way forward. Red Bull's technical team, led by Pierre Wash, decided to disregard Adrian's advice on the RB20, implementing the cooling design in spite of Adrian's reservations. While Adrian is by no means infallible, Red Bull's lack of improvement this season does imply that he might have been right about Red Bull's decision to change the cooling design. Of course, Red Bull aren't going to openly admit to the mistake, especially now Newey has left the team. Instead, they're turning up the heat on their rivals by accusing them of cheating. You know it's a good season when the teams are so closely matched that they start accusing each other of having cars that break the technical regulations. Among the thousands of photos and observations of their rivals' cars that Red Bull make at every race, they've spotted something on the McLaren that they're not happy with. At the Grand Prix in Imola, there were complaints that the front wing flaps of some cars tilted backwards when the load reached a certain level, thereby shifting the vehicle balance towards the rear axle in fast corners. Everyone does that though, flexi wings are nothing new to F1. Red Bull's most recent complaint is focused on McLaren's brake cooling. Red Bull recently discovered an additional hole on the brake linings of the McLaren MCL38 at the front and rear that shouldn't be there, at least not always. It's suspected that this is a cable access for a sensor that measures the temperature inside the brake ventilation drum. This hole is completely legal during Friday free practices, but come Saturday and the competitive sessions, it has to be sealed. According to Red Bull's observations, the holes were apparently open at some races. After a complaint, the FIA took a closer look. At the last two Grand Prix, the sensor access points were closed as required by the rules. McLaren simply stuck a tape over them. Since McLaren's advantage in tyre wear has not been as clear recently, Red Bull are of the opinion that McLaren were leaving the holes open until they complained to the FIA. With the FIA now aware, it is an advantage the McLaren have potentially lost, but considering the balance of performance at the moment and Red Bull's lack of performance-finding upgrades, it isn't going to slow McLaren down. What do you think of the progress Mercedes and McLaren have made this season? And should Red Bull have listened to Newey regarding their cooling solution? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.